Hi, my name is Melanie Ludy and welcome back to my channel. So way back in January of this year, Atomic Habits was everywhere. Every YouTuber was talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I wanted to read it. However, in January, everybody had it out of the library and I was willing to wait. So I finally got to read it in June of this year. And it's definitely worth the read. I will link it down below. But when I was going through it, I was astounded by how many times I could have applied his ideas to teaching. And thinking it through, like, having good habits means having good systems. And so much of teaching is having good systems, particularly for classroom management. Because, as my mom always likes to say, if you can't control a class, you can't teach them anything. So today we're going to talk about Atomic Habits and how his kind of framework really ties into teaching and some kind of practical ways it really is already in your classroom. So this is the third video in the Best School Year Ever playlist that I'm making. So this is my journey to try and have the best school year ever and also help you guys have your best school year ever. If you want to make sure you stay up to date with this playlist, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. It is free. Also, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. Another thing I want to mention before we get too far into it, James Clear does provide a parenting appendix, and it kind of dives into how you can influence your child, students in this sort of way to help them create great habits. Because it's different when you're changing your habits, but changing someone else's is a bit harder. So again, I'll link that appendix down below. So first, let's talk about like the main idea that he has here. So in this graphic, it starts with the cue, then you go to craving, then you go to response and reward. He has phrases for each one of these steps that make it really clear on how you're supposed to implement these. So let's break down each individual section here. So first up is cue. And his phrase here is make it obvious. So this is like signs in your classroom that say no cell phones, no hoodies. So if you have a pink group, you have a pink bin with a pink notebook and all these other pink accessories that go with that table. Another idea that he says that I think really ties along with the cue part of making it obvious is one space, one use. So you see this really in pre-K to 3 to 3rd grade classrooms. So like in my mom's pre-K classroom, which I've been in so many times at this point, she'll have quiet center where you read books and you are quiet. And then there's music center where you have the stereo with the headphones. And then there's dramatic play where those costumes only live in dramatic play. So one space, one use, it really helps to kind of define what actions happen where, and it helps create better habits because you're like, oh, if I'm in dramatic play, I know I can play with the food and the costumes, but I can't leave that area. It gets a little harder when you move up past kindergarten, 2nd grade because you don't have the same kids all day long and your space has to do a lot more double duty, especially in a public school classroom. So one of the things that I started to work on was having my kids at desks in the middle, and then I had side cabinets. So I wanted to have my one side area be for makeup work, and then the back of the room, I was gonna set up a kind of cozy corner. So I have these tiles, here, let me get them. So I had these tiles, and they came in like a pack of 30 or so. And I laid these out in the back and, you connect the puzzle piece edges and then they have a cozier spot to kind of relax and hang out. Now I have 7th and 8th graders and I was like, they might not be into this. My 7th graders went crazy over these tiles. Like it was a reward for them to be able to get the tiles and go sit somewhere else. It was huge for them. And this set I think was only about $30. I'll definitely link it down below, but you might consider having something like this because this is really independent. Like the kids can build with this on their own. They don't really need support. So this really would make any kind of space in your room cozy. fairly quickly, and it disassembles really quick too. So if you have shorter classes, they can do it each class, and it's not a huge cleanup job. Some other ideas for the cue on making it obvious. You might have like a running makeup work list. So just like a whiteboard in the corner, and it'll be, okay, so these are the last 2 weeks of assignments. This is what you can make up. And as the days go on, you erase the top one and you add one at the bottom, and you just kind of go through. That might be an option for you if kids are constantly asking you, what can I make up? What can I redo? Another one would be habit stacking. So this is kind of moving into routines versus systems. So systems are kind of, how do I get them to do this one thing or getting this one task accomplished? Routines then build into many things. So we come in quietly, sit down. We take out our do now. We answer the do now question. We raise our hands so we can get a stamp or a signature to get credit for it. That's kind of more of a habit stack, especially if we add like take out your homework and have it on your desk to be collected, because there's a couple different things going on in there. And it's not just all one habit, it's a building of habits, and it's a habit stack. So putting all those things together into like an entry routine might help get all of that done, especially if you have that entry routine posted. I had that at the top of my classroom, and I really saw a difference in how much got done. So the second part of his model is craving. So you have to make it attractive. So for this, it's kind of that constant reminder of how they might get rewarded if they do the right thing. You have to create an environment where your habits are popular or celebrated. He says people follow habits of the powerful, the many, and the close. You've probably experienced the power of many. So you might have one student who starts an idea. That student might be more powerful. You know which students those are. The ones who can get you off track and get the class off track very quickly. So that student would be considered powerful in your room because they can influence many and they can get the whole class off track. The way to kind of work that is to use those kids, use those people who are the powerful in your class to create this great habit. The good news is you are the most powerful person in your class. So if you are constantly modeling and reinforcing those habits, it's going to be a much more productive classroom. So if the standard for your classroom is we come in, we sit down, we do our do now, we get our homework collected, and you constantly reinforce that and you constantly have people do that, then that's the norm, and then kids are set up and ready for success. Versus if they just come in and, oh, we'll do the do now in like 10 minutes and you don't have homework. Maybe I'll collect it, maybe I won't. It's a whole much more wishy-washy kind of scenario, and it's hard to fall into a pattern or a rhythm. And then you open yourself up for opportunities for getting off track. The real strong point of number 2 is to tap into that group mentality. So a great way to do this is to give table points. So if the whole group of tables of like 4 kids do a certain thing, they get a table point. So then they kind of help keep each other on track, which helps you keep the whole class on track. So my friend had a lot of success with this with her 8th graders, but the key part to it was they got table points if everyone had their homework done, and that was always posted. It was clear how they could earn points. And then the point totals were also clear. So let me show you what her board would look like. Okay, so she would have something like this at the front of her board. And say she had like 2 sections. How many ever you have, you would just duplicate this. But then she would make this little kind of grid, and this would be table 1, like group 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then these would be their tally points. And then she also had right next to the tally points what the reward was. So she had how do you earn points and then what was the reward. So that inspired the craving for her in her classroom. She made it obvious with the tallies and the rules posted on how you earn points. And then she created the craving by showing the points, showing the reward. So then students would do the response and they would get the reward. Okay, so you could make them crave it by having the points, but what if there's no initial buy-in? What if the reward is not right? So you might consider different rewards, but I would stay away from food and like a prize box. Yes, they will work, but they will cause you to constantly have to level up what the reward is. So like a milkshake from Chick-fil-A might be the first one, but then they're kind of gonna get too used to that and you're gonna have to bump it up to like lunch or something like that as the time goes on, because the effect of the reward will wear off a little bit. However, if they're not really buying into the system and there's some pushback, make sure you stay calm and try and offer choices. So having freedom is the biggest reward. So if they get to choose whether they're going to, work on their intervention or take a 5-minute break, they're going to want to earn that 5-minute break because it's freedom to do what they want for 5 minutes. So that's kind of your biggest rewards you could offer, something involving freedom or choice. So my mom in her pre-K classroom, let me get the tickets. So my mom teaches pre-K, and for every one of her students, she'll have a star like this and it'll have their name on it. And then behind the star in this pocket chart, she'll have these caught being good stickers. So they get these tickets when they're caught being good. Once they get to 10 of these tickets, then they get a free pick of a center. They get choice, they get freedom. That will always work as a reward, and most of the time it is free to you, so you're not going broke to do this. So that's gonna be your kind of biggest rewards you could offer. Free time, choice. So maybe it's you choose not to do one essay question on a quiz. I know a math teacher that I worked with, he would do that a lot. You would get bonus points, or you could skip one of 2 questions on a quiz. And that would be huge motivators. The third step in his method is the response, and you have to make it easy. So this ties into number 2, which is creating that environment of craving. So if everybody wants to do this, then you doing it is not that hard of a step. So it makes it easier to do it when the whole group is on board. The other thing about it is having detailed steps. So having exemplars posted, having sentence starters, those things will make large tasks easier, so you will get the response you want with those sorts of things. And I'm not saying do the work for your students, no, because that defeats the whole purpose of your class. Like, they're there to work and to learn and to do well. But giving them that exemplar of, hey, this is what a great example would be, so you know where to start. Or having that sentence starter, just so students can get started and go from there. That's kind of be huge, especially in any kind of system you're creating. The other thing is kind of eliminating distractions. So my mom in her pre-K room, she will put quiet corner furthest from dramatic play because they get loud and they have fun in dramatic play. And it's really hard to read your book in quiet corner if people are having a lot of fun right next to you. So having kind of your room thought out a little bit. So like maybe don't put do nows in the back of the room if you want them to do that when they first come in. And then the final one is make it satisfying, or the reward. So we talked about how choice and freedom are going to be the best rewards you can offer. One, because they are intrinsically motivating, but 2, they're not going to cost you things, and they don't set up bad relationships with money or with food. And I know my school, we were a federal food school, so that's one of the big things of federal food. You're not supposed to reward kids with food. Food should never be withheld or bribed with, because then it sets up poor eating habits in the future, which I totally agree with. So then it becomes, okay, well, I can't give them candy, so like, what do I give them? Your best option will be choice. So then there comes the time where they might have chosen the wrong response. So if the system was they do their do now, they might not have done it. What happens then? So James Clear has this quote in his book, and it says, positive emotions cultivate habits, negative emotions destroy them. So any kind of negative, deep negative response is really going to crush whatever you are trying to build. The best way to kind of curb negative responses, because the kids are not always going to get it right, like, let's be real, is to kind of give the ho-hum critique, as he says. And this is basically kind of the offhand, like, no, this isn't right, but we're moving on. So like if someone is cursing in your room, you say, that's an ugly word, we don't use that in school, and you move on. There's no deeply negative thing. They know it's not right, but you don't make a big deal out of it. So you're not really like giving them kind of a reward of attention of anything when they did the response you did not want. So the biggest thing of making it satisfying is rewards or point systems. So I talked about table points earlier. I talked about the caught being good tickets that my mom uses, but I'm gonna put a disclaimer with those. You need to have a way that they can earn points posted so they know what they can do to earn points. You also need to have the reward posted. But the best way to kill your system is to have a way for removing tickets or points. I have done many systems where there is a punitive kind of thing, like you can lose points if you're not doing the right thing. And it always crushes my system that was working so well for me in a couple weeks, and then it's useless. Because like James Clear said in his quote, positive emotions cultivate habits, negative emotions destroy them. So their reward of everyone having their homework turned in can be taken away because James won't stop talking. And then it's like, what did I do all that hard work for? Because you're just going to take it anyway. And then they lose all faith in the system. They don't feel like they're ever going to get the reward. And it's this impossible goal. And they're like, screw it. I don't need it. Don't ever have a way where you take points or where you remove points for something. It has to be positive points are earned only. If they don't do the response, they've missed out on the opportunity to earn points. That's the negative of all of that. But they don't lose points, because then your system won't work. So I want to leave you with another quote from his book to kind of sum this all up. He says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. When I read this, I had to really stop and just let that sink in for a second, because every school year I feel like I have such high goals for what I want to do with the students, what I'm going to do to improve my practice, what parts of classroom management I want to beef up and make better. And the problem always was my systems weren't working for me. And so I would tweak them throughout the year. But if you don't start strong at the beginning, or you don't stick firm to a system, it really makes it less impactful. So the beginning of your school year is really the best time to hit it, because they don't know anything different. And I frequently made the mistake of negative points. And that's where you really run into problems. Please learn from my mistake and don't use negative points. Don't take away points that they have earned. They just miss out on an opportunity to earn more points. I hope you found these ideas as helpful as I did. I know it really is going to help me make some big level changes to my classroom this year, and hopefully make me have my best school year ever. Anything that I talked about, the book, the appendix, tiles, anything will be linked down below in case you want to check those out further. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the support that I've been getting. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.